Hello, it's me and my cat. Oh, there he is. Have you ever hit writer's block while drafting a story? Ever stopped halfway through a paragraph and literally never went back? Didn't know how to finish a scene, so you just didn't? Well, you, like this American, are not alone. Oh gosh, okay. So today I wanted to talk about jumping back into a story after maybe you've put it down, or for any reason you just stopped writing it. Because as some of you may know, I am in a similar situation. The last time I wrote anything for my Thick as Blood series was December 2017. Yeah, that's like 2 years ago. 2 years ago. A little over 2 years ago, because we're still in January of 2020, thank God. In fact, as I went through and was looking back at the draft, I stopped right around more than halfway through my first draft. But I just went and looked at it, and I literally stopped writing about partway through a scene that was supposed to like actually kick off the climax, you know? So I was just gearing up and like getting ready for something awesome to happen, but I stopped. And today we're gonna talk about why and how I am preparing myself to get back into it. So here we go. The reason why I stopped in the middle of the first draft of the sequel for Thick as Blood is because I got really burnt out after NaNoWriMo. So I hit the goal of 50,000 words during NaNoWriMo, and I wrote a little bit going into the month of December. And I think once the high sort of worn off, I was just so burnt out from that story, and I had never, since I started Thick as Blood, like since I started writing this draft, the very first one, did all the edits, published and everything, and then right after that I jumped right into the sequel. I had never taken a break from the story, from the characters, from anything. So when I hit that milestone and I was like, okay, I did what I set out to do, a lot of other stories and ideas and thoughts sort of came into my head, and I realized that I wanted to give my attention to those because I needed a break. Those other ideas manifested into 2 books, the first one being The Scum at the End of the Road, which is a novella, and it is out there, and I will leave a link below. The second one is my poetry book, Notes from a Wicked Child, which we are going to talk about at the end of the video. So now that I've gotten those out of my system, I am so ready to get back to this series. But unfortunately, it's not as simple as just opening the Word document and just writing and continuing, especially for me, who I'm an underwriter. I plan very carefully, and I have to be in a certain headspace in order to make things sound right. So I'm making this video to share with you guys my game plan and hopefully inspire somebody else to pick up a long forgotten project. I do want to say though, before I get into it, that I have always believed in this series and the story, and I don't believe in forcing a project to work when clearly it isn't. I personally don't have a lot of experience with abandoning projects because it's like, this isn't working. I have realized that this is just not the kind of story that needs to be written. In my experience, this is a project that I knew I was always going to finish. It was just a matter of when. So you put down a project for God knows how long and for God knows what reason, and now you're ready to get back into it and finish this bad boy. What is the first step? For me, the first step was rereading the series. So since I'm working on the second book, I had a first one to go off of, and it has been so long since I read through Thick as Blood, like in its entirety. So I made a lot of notes, and really it helped me get back into the mindset of my protagonist. Now, if you put down a draft of like, you know, a standalone novel or what have you, then I still suggest reading everything you have written so far. Which brings me to my next sort of step, which for this is like the first step of everybody. It's rereading what you have written so far. So I stopped over halfway of my first draft. I am rereading the first draft, but I am not editing, okay? Because I stopped halfway through, I'm not letting myself edit the front half. Like, I, in my head, am wholeheartedly committed to finishing the whole thing before I go back and edit, and that's just something that I think is really helpful, to not edit as you go. Some people it works. I think, who does it? Does Stephen King edit as he goes? I think Stephen King does, but I'm not Stephen King. If I were to do that, I would never stop editing. Like, nothing would ever get done. So I'm making notes, and as I'm going along, reviewing the outline that I made originally, like my first, you know, outline. I also have a binder of like notes and stuff about characters and places and research that I've done. I'm so glad I'm prepared on like everything. So the plan is, once I reread everything that I've written so far and I have caught up, I'm just gonna write and finish out the draft. However, I am going to write the second half of the draft, keeping in mind any adjustments that I have made to the first one. Even though I didn't physically edit the first part yet, in my mind, like, I already know there's some things that I want to change, or just little things, no like big things yet, but I'm finishing it out as if I've already sort of edited the first draft, just because that's going to save me a little work later on. And what's the point in writing something when you already know like you're gonna take it out or change it? So, but the biggest thing I'm gonna focus on is finishing it, because that is the hardest part of anything. And a little side note here, I think it's definitely beneficial to have people around you to bounce ideas off of, especially, you know, if maybe you stopped because you had gotten stuck with something, or maybe something just wasn't as like impactful as you thought it would be. Me personally, I'm a pretty solitary writer. I don't often go out and ask for feedback from other people. If I do, it's typically not actually people that are close to me. I've gotten some of my best feedback from people who literally have like not invested any sort of bit into my story, like at all. You know, it's been like coworkers, people that I know are like well read or are writers themselves. I like to, you know, talk with them about stuff, because they have like definitely a more precise opinion about things than people who are just like, oh yeah, I like you and I like your story. You know, not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just, for me, I like finding people who literally don't care at all. Sometimes I also want to point out that a complete rewrite might be necessary, especially if you have set the story aside because it wasn't working for you. I have probably, I think I've talked about this before, but there is at least 3 or 4 different versions of this particular story that all didn't work, and finally I found one that I was like, okay, this is it. So I am not opposed to complete rewriting. You know, I've done that with Thick as Blood. I haven't done it for any other stories. In this particular case, I think my beginning of the rough draft is completely solid, with a few minor tweaks and stuff that I didn't see because I was so close to it before. So in my case right now, a rewrite is not necessary, but you might decide that it is for you. This all sounds really straightforward when you lay it out. It's just like, oh, read what you have so far and write, and then you'll be back on track. But the execution is like the difficult part, especially for me right now. It has been 2 years since I've lost myself in Charlotte's world. And while I'm confident with her as a character, my writing, like specifically as the author, has improved since then. So I really want to reflect my growth as an author, but I don't want to lose her voice. You know, I don't want her to sound like a different person and describe things in a different way that first book Charlotte like wouldn't have. However, she has matured a lot since the first book, which is good for me. So that means I do have some room to play around with. And I feel if I was working on, you know, a standalone book, this would be way easier to implement, you know, my newer and better writing style. And if you don't have the luxury with that sort of wiggle room, and you feel like your story is salvageable and does not need a complete rewrite, I just want you to keep in mind that you can change things later on or as you're going. After you finish the first draft, you can go back and edit the crap out of anything you wrote before, which is precisely what I'm counting on. And you know, the second draft, or maybe if you're, you know, stopped like the 3rd or 4th draft, it doesn't matter. If you believe in this story, everything is gonna fall into place. I completely believe in that. And I know I talked briefly about my notes and my outline before, but I just want to touch upon it again, that the fact that I have written like extensive notes about characters and places, and that I also have like a whole other book to go off of if, you know, I'm not creating something from scratch. It really is going to help me in the long run, and I think I set myself up for this kind of situation where maybe in the back of my mind I knew like as soon as I hit those 50k words I was gonna stop for 2 years and definitely need like a refresher to study with before I jump back into like finishing it off. But if you maybe didn't outline or take notes, I might suggest going back and writing these things out as you read what you have so far. You know, maybe the reason why you didn't finish the draft is because you didn't outline and maybe got stuck, didn't know where things were going. Or maybe because, you know, you were kind of feeling like your plot or your characters or your settings were like falling flat because you didn't build it up more before you started writing. You know, before you pick your story back up, I would seriously think about why you stopped in the first place and try and combat that before you get back into it and invest yourself again. So that's what I have so far. I'm definitely gonna keep you guys updated once I start writing again, and I'll probably do like my little writing day vlogs and stuff. It is currently, I don't have my watch on. What day is it? It is the 19th of January. That means we only have, oh my god, wait, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 days to the release of my poetry book? What? You heard it here first, folks. February 1st, this bad boy is gonna be available for purchase. I don't even have the description written out yet. That was the big news poetry book, in case you didn't pick up on it. February 1st, Amazon. I will leave a link below. I will also link the blog for Notes from a Wicked Child that I created just as like a little home base for it, so you can read like the first beginning poems, and it'll have like a link where, you know, you can purchase it and all that good stuff. So check it out if you're interested. I know some of you are, so I really appreciate it. As always, the links to my stuff will be down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys very soon.